Something in you has been pacing lately. Not literally, though maybe that too, but somewhere underneath the surface, there's a version of you walking the same four walls of your own life, back and forth, looking for a way out that you haven't let yourself name. Today, with the moon in Sagittarius on August 20th, this feeling is sitting closer to the surface than usual, even if you can't quite name why yet. And here's the part almost nobody tells you. You've been calling it the wrong thing. You've been calling it ingratitude, instability, a phase, something to apologize for. But what if that restlessness was never a character flaw at all? What if it's the most honest part of you, finally refusing to stay quiet? Stay with me, because before this video ends, you're going to understand exactly what that itch under your skin has been trying to say. And something small may shift in how you see your own life before we even get to the end of this sentence. Right now, watching this, you are one of two people. The first group has felt it for weeks, maybe months. That low hum of "this isn't it" underneath a life that, on paper, works. The job that pays fine. The relationship that's stable. The routine that nobody would ever criticize. And instead of running from that feeling, this group has started listening to it, quietly, without announcing it to anyone. They've stopped calling it a mood and started calling it information. The second group felt the exact same thing and did what they always do. Talked themselves down. I should be grateful. Other people have it worse. This is just me being difficult again. They took a real signal and filed it under personality flaw, then went back to scrolling, back to the routine, back to the version of fine that costs them a little more of themselves every single day. Here's the question underneath this whole video. When the restlessness shows up, do you interrogate it, or do you interrogate yourself for having it? Because one of these paths leads somewhere that actually fits you. The other leads to 5 more years of fine. And the difference isn't luck or timing or the stars doing something to you. The difference is which of these two people you decide to be starting today. Let's talk about where this restlessness actually came from, because it didn't start with the moon entering Sagittarius on August 20th. The transit just turned up the volume on something that's been playing quietly for a long time. Somewhere along the way, you learned an equation. Maybe nobody said it directly, but you absorbed it anyway. Contentment equals staying, and wanting more equals disloyalty. Think about where that might have come from. A parent who sacrificed and never left and made sure you knew it. A culture, family, workplace, friend group, where ambition, past a certain point, got quietly punished, labeled as arrogance or ingratitude. A version of maturity that was actually just exhaustion wearing a nicer outfit. So you built a coping strategy. You learned to shrink your wanting down to the size of what was already available to you. Not because you lacked ambition, but because wanting more, out loud, once cost you something. Maybe approval, maybe belonging, maybe just peace in a house where big feelings weren't welcome. That strategy protected you. It kept you liked. It kept things smooth. Here's the 3 places you might recognize this playing out. The employee who's outgrown their role. 3 promotions ago, but stays, because at least it's stable and calls the boredom maturity. The partner who feels the relationship has calcified into roommates who love each other but haven't been curious about each other in years, and calls the flatness peace. The person who moved cities once, loved it, and never let themselves try again because everyone around them settled, and settling looked like the responsible thing to do. None of that was weakness. That was a system you built, brick by brick, to survive rooms where wanting more wasn't safe. But a system built for survival and a system built for a full life are not the same thing. And right now, one of them is asking to be retired. The hidden truth is this: you were never ungrateful. You were just fluent in a language that taught you to mistake your own expansion for disloyalty. And Sagittarius, blunt and honest as it is, doesn't speak that language anymore. You didn't lose your gratitude. You lost permission to want more. And it's time you took it back. Now, let's talk about what this actually looks like once it moves outward, because it will. A feeling this honest doesn't stay contained to your own head for long. It starts to show up in how you show up for other people. You might notice conversations that used to hold your attention suddenly feeling thin, not because the people changed, but because you're done performing interest you don't feel. You might notice yourself going quiet in rooms where you used to fill the silence, simply because you no longer have the energy to perform a version of yourself that fits everyone else's comfort. You might even notice certain relationships suddenly feeling like they require a costume, and you're tired of getting dressed. Here's what most people get wrong about this stage. They think it means something is breaking. A friendship that starts feeling different. A family dynamic that suddenly feels heavier to participate in. A routine with a partner that starts feeling like a script instead of a conversation. The panic sets in. Am I losing this? Am I the problem? And the instinct is to grab tighter, apologize more, shrink back into the shape that used to make everyone comfortable. But consider 3 different people going through this right now. The friend who's realizing one particular friendship only ever worked when she stayed small and agreeable. And the tension she's feeling isn't her breaking the friendship. It's the friendship finally being tested for whether it can hold her at full size. The son who's noticing family gatherings feels suffocating, not because he loves his family less, but because he's outgrown the role of the easy one he's played since he was 12. The employee whose team suddenly feels harder to sit through in meetings, not because the team got worse, but because he's no longer willing to shrink his ideas down to fit in a box that never fit him in the first place. This isn't loss, it's filtering. The relationships and dynamics built on your smallness will feel the friction first, and that friction isn't proof you're doing something wrong. It's proof you're finally taking up your actual size. What survives that friction was never fragile to begin with. What doesn't survive it was never really holding you. It was holding the shrunk-down version of you that made everyone else's life easier. What feels like you're losing people is often just you finally being too much room for a relationship built on you staying small. Here's the part nobody warns you about. Right before you expand, it doesn't feel like growth. It feels like nothing at all. Picture the half-second at the top of a jump off a high board. The moment you've already left the platform, but haven't hit the water yet. You're not falling with control, and you're not standing on solid ground either. You're just suspended, touching nothing. That's the sensation living underneath your restlessness right now. And it's the part that scares people into retreating before they ever get to the other side. You might feel it as a strange emptiness that shows up at odd times, driving home, brushing your teeth, lying awake at 1 a.m. with no specific thought attached to it, just a hollow, unplaceable ache. You might feel it as irritability with no clear target, snapping at something small because the real thing you're irritated at doesn't have a name yet. You might feel it as a kind of grief for a life you haven't even left. mourning the fine version of things before you've made a single actual change. Here are 3 ways this shows up. The woman who suddenly can't explain why her comfortable apartment feels like it's shrinking around her, even though nothing physically changed. The man who finds himself staring at his phone for 20 minutes without opening anything, not bored exactly, just unmoored. The person who cries at something small and unrelated, a song, a stranger's laugh, because the real tears have been backed up behind a dam of "I'm fine" for so long, they'll take any exit they can find. Most people mistake this suspended feeling for something going wrong. They think, if this were the right move, wouldn't it feel more certain, more exciting? So they scramble backward, back toward the platform, back toward the familiar flaw, mistaking the discomfort of transition for proof they made a mistake. But you are not falling apart, you are mid-air. And mid-air was never supposed to feel like solid ground. It was only ever supposed to feel like this, weightless, disorienting, and temporary. The old shape of your life has already let go of you. The new shape hasn't caught you yet. That gap is not evidence of failure. It's just physics. The emptiness you're feeling isn't the absence of a plan. It's the space your bigger life needs in order to land. And now it's time for today's comment of the day. This one comes from last video, and it says, "Thank you, Spirit, and all-knowing, all-seeing, all-being creator, and perfect intelligence and love of all." I want to sit with this one for a second, because it connects so directly to what we're talking about today. There's something almost radical about pausing to say thank you to something bigger than yourself, especially in a moment like the one many of you are in right now, mid-air, unsure, restless. Gratitude like this isn't about pretending everything is settled. It's about trusting that the intelligence running underneath your life is bigger than your current confusion. You don't have to see the whole staircase to trust there's a next step. That kind of gratitude isn't the opposite of restlessness. It's actually what makes the restlessness survivable. It's the hand on the small of your back saying, keep going. You're being caught even when you can't feel it yet. Thank you for sharing this. So, what does this actually look like in your real, ordinary week? Because insight without application just becomes another thing you nod along to and forget by Thursday. Think of a plant root slowly cracking a sidewalk. From the outside, nothing looks like it's happening. The concrete looks the same for weeks. But underneath, pressure is building in one exact, specific spot, quietly, patiently, until one day a hairline crack appears exactly where the pressure was concentrated. Over the next few days, watch for your own hairline cracks. They'll be small. They will not look like fireworks. Watch for the conversation where you almost say the honest thing and swallow it at the last second. Notice that moment instead of letting it pass unnoticed. Watch for the plan you make automatically, out of habit, and catch yourself asking, wait, do I actually want this, or am I just following the script? Watch for the small decision. What you eat, who you call back, whether you go to the thing you don't want to go to, where you have a real chance to choose your actual preference instead of the polite, expected one. Here are 3 specific things to look for. A text you've been meaning to send saying, actually, I don't want to do that. Notice if you send it or delete it. A moment where someone asks, how are you? And you feel the real answer rise up before the automatic, good you. Notice which one comes out of your mouth. A pull towards something that feels slightly impractical. A class, a trip, a conversation you've been avoiding that you'd normally file under someday. You do not need to blow up your life this week. That's not what this stage is asking of you. What it's asking is smaller and honestly, harder. Notice the crack before you cover it back up with concrete. Every hairline crack you let stay open this week is pressure finally finding its way out instead of building towards something you can't control later. You don't need a 5-year plan to start being honest. You just need to stop patching the cracks that are trying to let something true get through. Here's the layer most people never get to, because they stop one step too early. They finally admit the restlessness is real. They finally stop calling it ingratitude. And then, this is the trap. They think the work is done. They think naming the feeling is the freedom. It isn't. Naming it is just the door. Most people open the door, look through it, feel a rush of relief at finally understanding themselves, and then quietly close it again and go make dinner. They mistake insight for change. They journal about the restlessness. They talk about it with a friend over wine. They even cry about it. And then Monday comes and they go right back to the same job, the same silence, the same shrinking, just now with better vocabulary for why they're doing it. This is the part Sagittarius won't let you skip. If you're honest with yourself, understanding why you've been small was never the finish line. It was the permission slip. The actual test is what you do with the permission once you have it. And that's the part that costs something. It might cost a comfortable conversation you have to finally have. It might cost the identity of the reliable one, the easy one, the one who never complains. It might cost a version of stability that was never really stability, just familiarity wearing its clothes. Here's the trap in its purest form. You can spend years being aware of your own cage without ever touching the door. Awareness feels like progress because it's uncomfortable, and discomfort feels like growth. But awareness without a single small action is just a more articulate way of staying exactly where you are. The pattern interrupt here is this. You can know everything about why the horse paces the fence line. You can write essays about the fence, you can cry about the fence, and the horse is still standing in the same field until it walks through the gate that was already open. The deeper truth is that you already have everything you need to take one honest step this week. Not the whole leap. One step. The rest of the certainty you're waiting for was never going to arrive before you moved. It only shows up after, as a reward for having moved at all. Understanding your cage was never the freedom. Walking through the gate is. So let's talk about what's actually on the other side of this, because it's easy to get so focused on the discomfort of the crack that you forget to imagine what grows through it. Imagine, just for a moment, a version of your week where you say the true thing first instead of the polite thing, and nothing falls apart. Imagine a version of your life where "what do you actually want?" isn't a question that makes you panic. Because you've practiced answering it honestly so many times, it's become instinct instead of a crisis. Imagine waking up and the restlessness isn't there anymore. Not because you buried it again, but because you finally built a life that doesn't require you to. Here's the reframe that changes everything. You have been treating this restlessness like a problem to solve, something to medicate with routine and reassurance, and at least it's stable. But it was never the problem. It was the compass. It was the one part of you that refused to go numb, that kept whispering, "This isn't your ceiling," even when everything around you insisted it should be enough. The restlessness wasn't betraying your peace. It was protecting your becoming. And here's the part that might sting a little. In the best way, you were never too much. You were never ungrateful. You were never unstable. You were just early early to a version of yourself that the people around you weren't ready for yet, in a life that was sized for who you used to be. That's not a character flaw. That's just what it feels like to outgrow something before everyone else notices you have. 2 things to remember when this gets hard. First, comfort and rightness are not the same thing, and you can leave a comfortable room without it meaning you did something wrong. Second, the size of your life is not fixed, it's negotiable, and you are the one at the table. On the other side of this isn't chaos, it isn't recklessness, or burning everything down, or becoming someone unrecognizable. It's simpler than that. It's a life that finally matches your actual size. One honest conversation, one small brave choice, one unswallowed sentence at a time. You were never too much for your life. Your life was just too small for you. The cage was never locked. You were just the one still standing guard at the gate. If you've stayed with me until this point, thank you for giving this message your time and attention. With the moon sitting in Sagittarius today, August 20th, the invitation has been simple, even if it doesn't feel simple. Stop calling your growth ingratitude and start calling it what it actually is. A compass that finally got loud enough to hear. You don't have to have it all figured out today. You don't have to quit the job, end the relationship, or pack a bag by Friday. You just have to stop patching the crack. Let it stay open a little longer. Let the restlessness say its whole sentence, instead of cutting it off halfway through with "I should be grateful." I always come back to this one belief, and I'll leave you with it today. Peace that requires you to disappear was never peace at all. It was just a quieter kind of suffering, dressed up to look acceptable. Real peace has room for all of you, including the parts that want more. Wherever you are in this, mid-air, pacing the fence line, or already halfway through the gate, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you didn't scroll past this today. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.